Good day, Potter Maniacs! Welcome back to our channel, and we are continuing with the next chapter of Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always by Dead Woodpecker. So, if you're doing chores, well, that's not so bad, but if you've got time, just sit back, relax, and listen in to Chapter 7, The Not-So-Secret Diary.
Chapter 7, The Not-So-Secret Diary. Chapter text. Harry awoke to the pattering of a gentle summer rain on the windows of Ron's attic room and the feel of Ginny's lips against his. Not fully awake, he fully enjoyed the sensation, thinking that he was having an especially wonderful dream. He kissed her back, and he felt her sigh softly against his lips. "Wake up, sleepyhead," she said. He bolted upright, banging his head against hers. "Ow! Wah, Ginny!" Eyes wide, he looked over at the cage that held Scabbers, also known as Wormtail. He appeared to be sleeping, but who knew how often the traitorous bastard faked sleep in order to eavesdrop. Not daring to say anything, he just stared at her. "It's all right, Harry," Ron said from the other bed. He sat cross-legged and looked fully alert. "I dosed him with the sleeping draft Dad made for Mum the night after you two and the twins got back with the car," Ginny explained, smiling smugly. She threw a glare at the rat. "He's lucky I didn't give him the draft of living death." Harry flopped back down on his camp bed, nerves still jangling. "Sorry." He covered his eyes with his forearm. "I know you wouldn't give us away. I was just surprised." He eyed her. "Care to start over and wake me up again?" She laughed and pecked him on the cheek. "First I want to hear, did Dobby come to visit?" she asked. Harry nodded and grinned. "He did indeed. He warned me about the dire things to come, and then had his fun with the Dursleys. I wish I'd had a better sense of humor about it last time. Even more, I wish I'd had a camera to capture forever the look on Uncle Vernon's and Aunt Petunia's faces when they saw the cake go spat all over the client's wife." They all laughed appreciatively. Ginny curled up next to him on top of the covers, and he placed a hand in her hair, stroking it. Harry was in a very good mood. They had a bit of a break this summer, before they had to return to school and deal with the Horcrux waiting for them. He intended to enjoy it as fully as he could. His encounter with Voldemort had been made public, and Dumbledore had assured him after the leaving feast that already suspicions amongst the staff, of which Harry had had no idea, had been laid to rest. Professor McGonagall had apparently been especially proud, though he had to trust the headmaster on that one, since she'd looked much the same as always. Gryffindor had managed to win the House Cup, and best of all, Mrs. Weasley had treated him with all the warmth he remembered when he'd arrived at the Burrow 4 days previously. "Mum has completely come around, I think," Ron informed him, apparently following Harry's train of thought. "She almost drove me nuts when I first got home, asking questions and clucking over me like one of the hens in our yard." Ron looked very pleased with this. "And she was ever so worried about you after she heard what happened," Ginny told him, patting his knee. She paused. "What I want to know is how Neville got tangled up in this." Harry told her. "So we let him. I couldn't say no, and I didn't even want to," he finished. "He was helpful, too. He figured out the devil's snare before Hermione would have." "Good for Neville," Ginny said. "Did you know that he spent all of first term and most of second, until the dragon, with Professor Sprout in the greenhouses?" Harry asked her. "You were closer to Neville. Did he ever tell you that?" "No, but it doesn't surprise me," replied Ginny. "I don't think he had very many friends before Dumbledore's army." Harry had had a thought of beginning the DA anew in the coming year, during his incarceration at the Dursleys. Professor Lockhart was just as useless as Umbridge, after all, and Harry could use his experience with Voldemort to explain away what might be viewed as advanced paranoia. But he discarded the idea almost as soon as he'd had it. He was heading into some murky waters, with everyone going to be sure that he was the heir of Slytherin. He didn't want to muddy it up even more by starting an army. "Well, that's about to change," Ron said. "We'll introduce him to Luna. Explain to me again how she found out." Ginny opened her mouth to speak, but Harry spoke before she could. Thinking about suspicions reminded him of something. "Hold up, I almost forgot." He leaned over, trying not to dislodge Ginny, and rummaged around the open trunk next to him, and finally found an old issue of the Daily Prophet. "Dumbledore gave this to me," Harry explained. "It's the article that Dumbledore, Snape, and your mom mentioned. You kept that quiet," Ron accused. I forgot, Harry said honestly. I really did, what with the dragon and the stone and everything. Makes me wonder what else you've forgotten, Ron muttered. Guilt surged up inside Harry, but he forced it back down. Ron and Ginny, heads now bent over the slightly yellowed parchment, did not notice. Ginny finished first, her face flushed with anger. I want to hex the person who wrote this, she bit out. He or she wrote this when you were only 7. Barely. He was almost 8, Ron said, tapping the date on the cover. It's dated the 30th of July. Do you honestly think that matters, Ron? Ginny asked. It's worse than what I expected. No wonder Mum was suspicious. She'd read this piece of rubbish. And who knows how many other people read it and took it to heart. If Mum reacted to it. And you know how soft-hearted she is. Then you can bet that some people are already preparing for the day when you're the new Dark Lord. Harry thought her reaction was a bit much and was just about to tell her. So, when Ron spoke. She's got a point, Harry. I don't know who wrote this, but whoever it was is not on our side. Dumbledore doesn't think it was a Death Eater, Harry told them. Then he thought about what Sirius Head had told him in the Gryffindor common room about how good and evil was not necessarily divided between Death Eaters and non-Death Eaters. He'd been talking about Umbridge. Do you think it might be Umbridge? Ron and Ginny looked stunned and then thoughtful. I reckon that's a good idea, Ron said slowly. I place my bet on it. I would too, said Ginny. It makes sense. You know she'd do anything to discredit you, Ron added. But she hasn't met me yet. Maybe she's trying to get a head start? Harry asked. She already sees me as a threat to her precious ministry. The ministry has never wanted to believe that Voldemort would one day return. Dad said, last time, right before we left for Grimmauld Place, that Minister Fudge has always spoken of him as though he were dead, and refused to hear otherwise, Ginny said. Do you think he's in on it too? Ron asked. No, too subtle, said Ginny. But I'll bet he was relieved when it happened. Umbridge probably did it to put him in a better position or something. Maybe she even told him after the fact, and that's why he trusted. Well, trust, damn. I'm getting my tenses confused her. Oi, Ron, who had been lounging, sat upright and swung his legs off the bed. Ginny, we forgot to tell him about the other article. Another article? Harry asked wearily. Yeah, it came right after I got here. Ron opened the drawer on his nightstand, revealing a very messy pile of parchment and old quills. It's not bad. Compared to some of the stuff that came out last time, it's almost nice. Harry took the offered copy of yet another issue of the Prophet. His eyes widened when he saw the headline. Harry Potter allegedly meets WHO at Hogwarts. Allegedly, keep reading. In a statement last Friday night, Albus Dumbledore, Chief Warlock of the Wizengamot, 111, said that Harry Potter claims that he rescued a Philosopher's Stone from falling into the hands of he who must not be named. Harry Potter has met Sick who must not be named. Sick who had possessed Professor Quirrell, and had it not been for Harry's timely reaction, would have once again restored himself to life. The stone, formerly owned by renowned alchemist Nicholas Flamel before it was destroyed, had been placed under Dumbledore's protection after it was nearly stolen at Gringotts. It is undeniable that Harry Potter and 3 of his fellow first years, Donald Weasley, Ned Longbottom, and Hermione Granger, a Muggle-born, did indeed meet a dark wizard who sought eternal life and unlimited wealth. Other sources allege that it was not in fact you-know-who, dead for 10 years, but one Professor Quirrell who taught Muggle studies at Hogwarts School for witchcraft and wizardry. Harry Potter's claim that he met you-know-who is undoubtedly due to the fact that he suffered extreme magical exhaustion, which caused him to be in the hospital wing for several days. Madame Pomfrey, the nurse, said, "Oh yes, Mr. Potter slept for days after he rescued that stone from you-know-who. He nearly died. While there have been rumors that you-know-who has not been defeated, Albus Dumbledore has always said that he would someday return. There is no conclusive evidence that this is true. It is very admirable that Mr. Potter, a first year, managed to stop a fully grown wizard at all, although in his case there appears to be precedent. Yet it must be pointed out that the strain and the magical exhaustion may have led to the belief that Quirrell had been possessed by a wizard who is almost certainly dead. Harry Potter himself was unavailable for comment, as he is enjoying his holiday at an undisclosed location. It could be a lot worse, Harry said objectively when he finished reading. I could be an attention-seeking liar. That's what I thought too, Ron said. Glad you're not mad. I'm a bit hacked off that they didn't get my name right. Fred and George didn't stop calling me Donald for weeks. I'm not, said Harry, surprised by the truth. Not this time. I think if this had come out when I really was 11, I would have been. But we already know that they aren't going to believe me when he really does come back. Ginny reached up and entwined her fingers with his. They'll have to believe. In the end, she murmured. I know, he replied, a little note of sadness in his voice. HPHPHPHPHPHPHP. Luna wandered into the kitchen of the Burrow the day before their trip to Diagon Alley, looking as though it had happened quite by accident. Harry was the first to see her. If she knocked, Harry didn't hear it, and he had to duck underneath the table to hide his grin. She looked much the same as a child as she had in her older years. Long, straggly blonde hair, bulging blue eyes, and a distinctly dotty air. She was shorter and smaller, but that was about it. He nudged Ginny, who sat beside him picking tiredly at her breakfast. She blinked blearily at him, and he motioned to Luna with his head. Luna, she cried, more awake than she had been moments previously. Ron nearly fell off his chair. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley did not react. Presumably this had happened before. Hi, Ginny, said Luna. I'm happy to see you again. I didn't know if you'd want me here since your brothers are home on holiday. Don't be silly, dear, Mrs. Weasley chided, already grabbing an extra plate and piling it high with eggs, sausage, bacon, and toast. We're always happy to have another girl in the house, especially when all of the boys are home. She looked over at her sons, for it was quite a lot, even with Bill and Charlie missing. Ron and Harry were grinning, but the other boys were in various states of shock. Mom, we're not dressed. Harry did not think that he had ever seen George Weasley embarrassed. His face was flushed bright red, and his mouth slightly open. Harry couldn't blame him. He and Fred had staggered into the room 5 minutes ago, wearing boxers and nothing else. Serves you right, Mrs. Weasley pointed at him. I've told you 1,000 times not to come down in your underwear, and you never listen. Luna watched with mild interest as Fred and George, who were speechless and several shades of red, scampered out of the kitchen and up the stairs. Ron and Percy laughed loudly, while Ginny covered her mouth to hide her snicker. Daddy says that twins have spots on them from when they pricked each other with their nails before they were born. He was right. I think they're just freckles, dear. I'm afraid all of us Weasleys have got them, Mrs. Weasley said with equanimity. Ron howled with mirth. Ginny, you were right. He wiped his eyes and stuck out his hand. Hi, Luna. I'm Ron. And this is Harry. I know, Luna said, returning his handshake. Ginny told me all about you. You're the youngest, and you just finished your first year at Hogwarts, and you've got a long nose. Thanks, Ron said. The twins, returning with more clothes on than was necessarily warranted for the warm summer day, were still so embarrassed that Luna had seen their bare chests that they did not even try to torment their younger brother. Luna then looked at Harry, eyes traveling from his untidy hair to his scar. They lingered there for a while. What does he know who look like? She asked after a minute of silent staring. Ginny and Ron snorted, and then there was dead silence. Harry felt uncomfortable as he realized that everyone in the room was staring at him, waiting to hear his reply. He stalled, hoping that Mrs. Weasley would save him from answering this question. Well, I don't know if I really know what he looks like. He saw the snake-like face and the red eyes in his nightmares at least once a week since he was stuck on the back of Quirrell's head. His nose was shaped funny like slits. You really met him then? Fred spoke up. When Quirrell was trying to get the stone, you know who was what he was hiding under his turban. Young man, Mrs. Weasley flared up. You are out of line. George was outraged on behalf of his brother. You didn't mind when Luna asked him. Luna is not my son. George and Fred muttered mutinously together, but the conversation turned to lighter things. Luna ended up spending the day with them. They did not get a chance to speak to her about the time travel, but she did not let on by word or gesture that she knew. The twins, having gotten over their embarrassment and taken off one of their sweaters, suggested a game of Quidditch, which turned out to be several games, with Fred, Ron, and Luna on one team, and Ginny, Harry, and George on the other. By the time it was too dark to continue playing, George had told Harry 31 times that he ought to try out for the house team, and Fred had told him 17 times, with increasing annoyance, that Harry always caught the apple Mr. Weasley had charmed to make fly, that he would make a decent seeker. "Mum, can I walk Luna home?" Ginny asked after dinner. Mrs. Weasley looked uncertain. "I don't know if it's safe, dear. Your father, and I thought we'd take her side-along apparition again." "Luna walks over here all the time," said Ginny. "Not at night, just in the mornings," Mr. Weasley replied. He and his wife exchanged a look that Harry took to mean that they did not approve of such a young girl walking such a long way by herself at any time of the day. They just couldn't prevent it from happening. "What if Harry and I went with them?" Ron asked, his mouth full of treacle tart. "Then there'd be 4 of us." "We could go too," Fred said, indicating himself and George. "Absolutely not," Mrs. Weasley said. She had found their most recent owl order purchases in their room while they'd been playing Quidditch, and she had yelled at them for over an hour before dinner. "You're just lucky I'm letting the 2 of you go with us to Diagon Alley tomorrow." "What do you think, Arthur?" she asked her husband. Harry crossed his fingers under the table. "I can't see the harm," Mr. Weasley said. "It's a pretty safe trip, especially if there are 4 of them. And we'll keep an eye on the clock." "You 3 come straight home," she ordered. "Tell Mr. Lovegood that you're not to linger. We're getting up early tomorrow. And take a lantern." "Huh!" Ron shouted once they were out of earshot, and he punched the air in triumph. He grabbed a bemused Luna into a tight hug and spun her around, while Harry and Ginny looked on and laughed. "Luna, how did you know?" "Yeah, Luna," Harry said. "I've been wondering since we got Ginny's letter." "I dunno," she shrugged. "Ginny looks older than 10. I'm 11 now," Ginny informed her. "And so do the 2 of you," Luna continued as if she had not been interrupted. "It's obvious," she cocked her head. "So if you're older than you look, then you must have come from the future." "It's that simple," Ron asked. "You see 3 people who look older than their age, and you automatically assume that they're from the future?" Harry could tell that he was impressed. "Daddy knows a lot about it, and I've read some of his books," she said tranquilly. "Do you know that the spell and potion you used came from Merlin? He traveled through time, too. Daddy reckons that he still is. We just don't know it because he knows how to disguise himself. Be kind to strangers. They may be Merlin," he says. "How did you know about the tears of Merlin? Did Ginny tell you?" Harry asked. He walked ahead a little and pushed away some of the branches so that the girls did not walk into them. "No, she guessed that too," Ginny answered. "It's the only way you could have done it," Luna said. "Other ways leave you with the same body." "You know, Luna," Ron said seriously, "I think I appreciate you even more now. I'm beginning to suspect that some of your strange ideas were true after all." Luna turned around and walked backward so she could see him. "I think you're Lancelot," she announced. "And Harry is Arthur, and Ginny is Guinevere. They were told that they were going to get a second chance, and I think you're it." "The thing is, Luna," said Harry, "this already is our second chance. And wasn't Guinevere in love with both Arthur and Lancelot?" Ginny asked. "I'm not going to fall in love with Ron. EW, which is why things will work out this time." Luna smiled. Harry could not help but think later, as he crawled into bed, that today had been the last day of the holidays, no matter that they still had a week until September 1st. Tomorrow they would go to Diagon Alley, and they would return home with the Horcrux. Already, his thoughts were turning to the darkness ahead, both this year and in the distant future he was trying his hardest to prevent. He suspected seeing Luna had made the memories, dormant these few months, return again with a vengeance. Harry stared down in shock at the small figure of Luna Lovegood, whom he'd thought had been in Azkaban for well over a year. He'd had to carry her out of Malfoy Manor while Ron carried an unconscious Hermione. The cellar had been dark, and the extent of her injuries unknown. She had spoken to them. She'd helped them find the nail, and had cut away the bindings herself. But now, Harry saw in the light of the full moon that Luna bled deeply from 100 different cuts. He could not understand how she was breathing. "Bill! Fleur!" he shouted. He dropped Creature's hand. Ron had already run in with Hermione, who had been tortured with the Cruciatus Curse before Bellatrix had thrown her unconscious body down the stairs. Luna's face was so pale that she looked translucent. Amazingly, she opened her eyes. "Spell, preventing me from escaping," she said weakly. "Did this every night, or every week, can't remember. Healed me, cut me, heal me, cut me, can't stop the bleeding. It took a second for what she was saying to penetrate his tired mind. He nearly dropped her. Luna, they did this to you every night? And made it so if you escaped, you'd bleed too, but he couldn't finish. Death, Luna whispered. No, Harry said forcefully. No, you aren't going to die. It sounded like a lie, even to his own ears. But she did an hour later, lying on a bed in one of Bill and Fleur's spare bedrooms. Fleur could do nothing. She didn't know of nothing that might save her. Molly arrived, summoned by Patronus, and was just as helpless. If Harry had had one bit of hope that the healers at St. Mungo's would not turn them over to Voldemort, he would have taken her there and damned the consequences. In the end, all any of them could do was hold her hand while the white sheets were stained scarlet with her fleeing life. HP, 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 HP. Harry played with the small coin he had enchanted to connect to two others. The Protean charm had been a difficult bit of magic, and it had taken several tries before Harry had done it right, and he did it several more times after that to make sure it was perfect. They weren't the same as the ones they had used to start an army underneath the Ministry's nose. Those had been spelled to change the date and time. This one was a little different. As soon as Ginny tapped hers with her wand and muttered, "Of course," always and always, Harry's and Ron's would vibrate and grow uncomfortably warm. Harry had been tempted to also make it so that a piercing whistle came from it, but he realized that he was being paranoid. When Ginny finished writing in the diary, she would repeat the words, and all coins would go back to normal. Harry did not like this plan. He'd said so many times. He'd been shouted down each time. It was Dumbledore's portrait who had convinced him that these things needed to play out. They needed the sword. And after what Harry and this Dumbledore had gone through to destroy the ring, he reluctantly agreed. That did not mean that Harry was not allowed to brood over the decision, as he had told Ron earlier that morning. Harry had gotten very little sleep the night before, and Ron had noticed. Neither one of them are worried enough, Harry thought sourly. Get moving, mate. Ron broke into his thoughts. Mum's in a fury. You're not even packed. He gaped around the room, seeing Harry's things still strewn all over the place. What VE you been doing? You missed breakfast so you could pack. It'll only take 5 seconds, Harry said irritably. And then he proved it, using the same spell that Dora Lupin had used when the Order of the Phoenix had sprung him from the Dursley prison. You could have done that and had time for breakfast, Ron told him. Together, they lugged Harry's trunk down the stairs. Better take that to the car, boys. Mrs. Weasley stood beside the front door, hands on her hips. We're already late. Ginevra Molly Weasley, get down here now. Harry and Ron obeyed, and Harry soon found that only Ron's trunk was in the boot. Percy came out, dragging his and panting heavily. Ron and Harry ran over to help him. With a grateful sigh, Percy rubbed his back and said they'd better get out here. Mum's in a state. It took them another half hour before they were on the highway. The twins had everything they'd forgotten, and Mrs. Weasley ranted in the front seat. I told you to pack last night. Obviously, I should have checked to make sure of it, she kept saying. And Ginny, the first day of school is not the day to have a lie-in. Sorry, Mum, Ginny said. She sounded tired, as though she'd gotten as little sleep as Harry had. He stared at the back of her head. He'd have to ask her if she had any misgivings. If she did, they could put a halt to this right now. They'd figure out how to get Gryffindor's sword some other way. Harry occupied himself with these thoughts the rest of the way, only breaking out of his reverie when Harry and Ron were alone, staring at the barrier that led to platform 9 3/4. Ron looked at it. Do you reckon we should even try it? Yeah, Harry said. He smiled for the first time that day. I don't think we should crash headlong into it again. If that's what you're asking, he proved this by placing his hand against it. Yeah, it's definitely solid. Let's go to the car and wait for Mum and Dad, then, Ron said. They hurried through the station, rushing past staring muggles, out the doors, and into the sunlight that seemed especially bright after the shadowy station. I have something to say to you, Ron said, after they had reloaded the trunks in the boot and put Scabbers and Hedwig in the back seat. Muffliato, he waved his wand. Before Mum and Dad get here, you got to stop brooding about things. Yeah? Well, I wish you'd worry a little more. Harry said at once, frustration bubbling up inside him. We're letting him. I know what we're letting him do, Ron said. Remember control. Isn't that what you told me when I was worried about Hermione and the troll? It isn't the same. No, it isn't, Ron admitted. Don't you think I'm worried too? But I trust you, Harry. Listen, even though I knew that things would work out the way they did last year, what you did was still pretty damn risky. Everything we're about is risky. But Ginny knows what she's doing, and so do you. And trust me, Harry, you ought to worry about yourself. What do you mean? Harry asked blankly. Ron laughed shortly and rumpled his hair. Talk about having to point out the obvious, Harry. How many times are you going to have to escape Voldemort? But that's different. That's me. Ron gaped at him. Are you mental? If you think that Ginny wasn't going spare with worry about you last year with the stone, you're mad. She loves you just as much as you love her. The difference is that she trusts you. Harry sagged against the car. I do trust her, he said in a low voice. But what if I'm not fast enough? What if everything goes sideways? Ron shook his head firmly. It's not going to. You saved her when she was just my little sister to you. You'll die before you let anything happen to her. You're the only one who doesn't know that. Pull it together. Harry mulled that over in his mind, trying to find an argument. Ginny was well aware of the risks. She was the one who had spent 4 months fighting about this, and Harry had, with the help of the portrait, finally decided that she was right. It was difficult to hold on to that resolution in the here and now. He hated the idea of placing her in danger, but realization slowly dawned on him that he was being awfully patronizing. Harry needed her at his side fighting. It wasn't fair to her to want to lock her up somewhere safe. The woman he loved would never stand for it, and if he loved her, he would trust her. And himself. You're right, he said reluctantly. Merlin's pants, that took long enough. Ron blew out a deep breath. You're lucky you agreed. Ginny planned to hex you tonight if you hadn't, and she wasn't going to be nice about it. Thanks, Ron. And Harry did not mean that he was thankful for being saved from something painful. No problem, mate, Ron said easily. He gazed at the car with longing clear upon his face. Are you sure we can't do it again? No, Harry said forlornly. We got to talk to Dumbledore and Snape before the rest of the students arrive. Despite the fact that it had been a great deal of fun, stealing the flying car was more trouble than they could afford. What are you two doing out here? Mrs. Weasley shrieked. Harry turned to her with a sigh. As Ron explained the solid barrier to his incredulous parents, Harry, despite his more positive outlook of the last few minutes, could not help but feel that he had forgotten something very important. HP. Yes, we're sure, Ginny said firmly. We have got to get Gryffindor's sword, she explained. You don't have any idea how much we need it. If fiend fire can be used to destroy the Horcruxes, Snape began, but Ron cut him off. Can you control it? He asked. Dumbledore here is the only one who can make it come and go as he pleases. And even then it takes quite a bit of control, Dumbledore nodded. It will destroy Horcruxes, but if they find themselves needing to destroy it alone, for example, when they break into Gringotts, they will need the sword. Unleashing fiend fire is remarkably dangerous. Yes, Severus, even for me. I wouldn't unleash fiend fire if someone paid me 1,000,000 galleons, Ron said. We've seen too much of the destruction it brings, even at the hands of our allies. They all turned to stare at the diary Ginny held in one hand. You look unhappy about this, Potter, Snape observed. I am unhappy, Harry said quietly. But he met Ginny's eyes. We desperately need that sword. Not just for the cup. I'm thinking about the snake, Nagini. And this is the only surefire way I know to get the sword. You said that Neville Longbottom, loath as I am to believe it, also acquired the sword after you thought it lost in the hands of Goblin, Snape pointed out. He did, Harry agreed. But I think that the sword only comes when you're in mortal danger. You gotta need it badly enough. You just saw it. We all put the hat on and asked for help. No sword. Snape's lips twisted and glared at the offending object. They all knew that whatever the hat had said when he had placed it on his head had annoyed him a great deal. I should have known that Godric Gryffindor had a vile sense of humor. To be perfectly honest, Severus, said Dumbledore, eyes twinkling. I don't believe that Gryffindor placed the enchantments as he did merely to vex us. Be that as it may, Slytherin would never have required this of those that came after him. Snape said. No, Ron said slowly, as though speaking to a small child. He just left a basilisk in the school, hoping to get rid of all the Muggleborns. Use that insolent tone with me again, Weasley, and you'll find yourself with a month of real detention, Snape threatened. Though I do see your point, he added grudgingly. Professor, Ginny piped up after a long moment of silence. Will you check my obfuscamancy shields? Ron taught me how to do it, and I've been working on it all summer, but I don't know if I'm doing it right at all. Snape consented. Dumbledore, Harry, and Ron watched closely as Snape and Ginny stared at one another. It is a good effort, Snape finally said. But as Potter and Weasley know, the true obfuscamancy shield will be a complete spiral. Your true memories and that which you want to keep hidden are still reachable. Keep working on it, and I will. He took a moment to think. I will check it every Friday during your potions class. If I think you need more help, I'm sure I can arrange to place you in detention. Ginny grimaced. I'll work on it every night. I don't think I've got time to be in detention.
Good day again, Harry Potter fans. Welcome back to our page. We are continuing on with Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always, by Dead Woodpecker. We are on Chapter 8, The D.A. Revisited.
Chapter 8, The D.A. Revisited. Chapter text. Dear Tom, I'm so alone here at Hogwarts. No one understands how hard it is to be the last of so many, and I don't think I can compete. Bill was head boy, Charlie was prefect, Percy's on his way to being head boy, and the twins aren't afraid of anything, and will play pranks on anyone. And Ron, he's best friends with the Harry Potter. They saved the Philosopher's Stone from He Who Must Not Be Named last year. I'm the only girl, and I don't think I'm good enough. You heard a voice? Hermione said, confused. Coming from the walls? Yes, Harry whispered. They were in the library together, finishing up the essays Professor McGonagall had assigned. Ron reckons I didn't hear anything, but I know I did. Where is Ron, anyway? She asked. Detention, Harry said dismissively. Listen, it was really creepy. It said kill, tear, kill in this odd voice. I think I know what it was then, Hermione said. Harry thought for a hopeful moment that she had figured out that a basilisk was crawling through the walls waiting to kill a Muggleborn with a single look. But her expression was far too smug. What? Harry asked warily. Peeves, she answered. You know how he likes to trick students. I'll bet he'd think it was a laugh. It wasn't Peeves, said Harry. We'd just seen Peeves writing naughty words on the blackboard in an empty classroom. Another ghost, then, Hermione said. Her quill quivered while she wrote speedily. Harry let her work in silence and stared around the library. For the first time in a while, he let himself remember the Hogwarts that was. Hannah Abbott sat with Ernie Macmillan and several other second-year Hufflepuffs. She looked very young with her short blonde hair done up in pigtails. Harry wondered vaguely if he ought to be pushing her and Neville together, but decided that he had come back in time to defeat Voldemort without such a dreadful cost, and not to play matchmaker. It had been a shock when Neville had announced that he was marrying Hannah. None of them had even known they were dating. But after the members of Dumbledore's army, who had spent months of their last year hiding out in the Room of Requirement, had been liberated, several of them had taken up residence in the home Hannah had shared with her dead mother. Neville had eventually moved from a spare bedroom into Hannah's room, and they'd been married even before Ron and Hermione had. After watching the two of them at their wedding, Harry had been surprised that no one had seen it before. It was a small wedding in a backyard protected by the Fidelius charm. Hannah's gentle face was aglow with happiness and streaked with tears as she stood before Neville and promised to love and cherish him. Neville beamed proudly. Harry was relieved to see that the scars inflicted by the Carrows were fading. Harry stood and watched them. When Neville had asked him and Ron to stand up for them, Harry had been unsure. Not because he thought that they shouldn't get married. After spending time with them together, it had been plain to see that they loved each other very much. But he'd worried that his presence and status as undesirable number one would cause undue danger. But, as Ginny had rightfully pointed out, the Death Eaters could not penetrate the secret, not with Neville as secret keeper. Thinking of Ginny, he turned to look at her, winking. She smiled up at him from where she sat with her mother and Hermione. All three had tears streaming down their faces. Girls and weddings, he thought, shaking his head. But Harry could not pretend that his throat wasn't a little tight. Until the day I die. What are you smiling about? Hermione asked suspiciously. You've been staring at those Hufflepuffs. I'm not, said Harry. I wasn't smiling. I was thinking about the bloody voice I heard in the walls. Was it saying something funny this time? Because you were definitely smiling, said Hermione. You can't be too worried about it. Ginny believes me, he said stoutly. Where is Ginny, anyway? Hermione asked. I think she and Luna wanted to go to the Quidditch match, said Harry. He could not help glancing forlornly in the direction of the Quidditch pitch. It wasn't Gryffindor playing, but Slytherin against Ravenclaw. Still, though, he wished he could fly again and leave his worries behind him as he soared through the clouds. Hermione clicked her tongue. When Harry looked at her questioningly, Hermione grimaced and said, Luna is just so odd. She calls Ginny Guinevere and makes up all sorts of non-existent animals. I think her father is the editor of the Quibbler. That's a rubbish magazine, you know? The more bizarre and impossible it is, the more it gets attention. I tried reading one of the issues Luna lent me, but I couldn't even get through one article. I like Luna, said Harry. He thought Hermione was being a bit unfair. Ever since Ron had introduced them at the feast over a month ago, he'd noticed that Hermione was a bit sharp with her. Luna, ever serene, did not seem to notice. But Harry remembered Hermione's broken promises to Luna as she bled out at Shell Cottage. You can't die, Luna, she whispered, her voice still hoarse from screaming. We've got to go hunting Crumplehorn Snorkax. I've been doing some research, and I'm pretty sure we can find them in Finland. Between the two of us, we'll find them, we will. But we can't if you die. You don't believe in them, Luna said. Her voice was fading away, and so was she. Still, she smiled that familiar, dreamy smile. Yes, I do, Hermione sobbed. I really, really do. I promise. We're going, just as soon as you get better. Now you look worried, Hermione said. Honestly, Harry, if this is really bothering you, maybe you should go see Madame Pomfrey. Nah, Harry shrugged. He figured he'd given enough of a try. Maybe once the Chamber of Secrets was opened again, she'd figure it out straight away. He was about to bend his head again to the essay when he felt heat coming from his pocket, vibrating against his leg. Ginny, listen, we've done enough on this thing for the day. Let's go back to the common room and see if anyone knows who won the match. Filled with a nervous sort of energy, he hopped from foot to foot while Hermione reluctantly put her books away. Ginny is writing in the diary right now, he thought. He needed to at least be in the common room, like he was last time. She'd come down the stairs like a sleepwalker. She hadn't noticed him or Ron, and Harry'd had to fight the urge to knock her over. But instead, he just sat there, letting her walk alone into the chamber. What has gotten into you today? Hermione asked, once they'd left the library. You've been acting strange. First the voice, then the weird smile. I just want to know who won the match, Harry lied. I reckon it's over. Hermione did not push it, for which he was grateful. Instead, she chattered, and he pretended to pay attention to her. Why is she walking so slowly? Oh, damn, he heard from behind him. He was up almost an entire flight of stairs, and her heavy book bag was torn. He hadn't even noticed when she'd stopped. All my quills broke. All Harry wanted to do at the moment was to march straight up to Gryffindor Tower and make sure that Ginny was all right. He didn't think she'd be possessed. Not today. But until he felt the heat recede, he didn't know for sure. Sighing, he turned around. He ought to at least help Hermione. Maybe that would make her move faster. There was no warning at all. He felt a punch to his back that felt like it might have broken his spine. He had no time to even try to catch himself as he tumbled down the staircase. He was trying to focus on breathing through the pain like fire in his back. He could hear Hermione screaming like she had at Malfoy Manor. He wanted to tell her to stop. Damn it, Dobby, was his last thought before he heard a crack, and a violent sun exploded behind his eyes, leaving nothing but darkness. HP. Dear Tom, Harry Potter is so brave. He was so dreadfully hurt in an attack, but he's still alive and still fighting. Ron reckons that he'll be all right, but I've seen him in the hospital wing, and he looks like he's almost dead. But that can't be. He's the boy who lived. He defeated you-know-who when he was only a baby. I think my heart would break if he died, even though he doesn't seem to know that I exist. HP. The first thing Harry felt upon waking was dreadful thirst. He felt as though his mouth had been stuffed with cotton that had been sun-dried in the Sahara Desert. He wanted to lick his lips, but his tongue was too swollen to move. Water, he thought desperately. Then he tried to say it, but it came out like a croak. Arthur's awake. Luna's voice. Hermione screamed, and someone dropped something heavy. It clattered when it fell, and Harry desperately hoped that it was not a bedpan. Sorry, said Neville. Hermione scared me. He doesn't look awake, said Ron. Harry blinked. Ah, he said, when he tried to say, get me water. Someone mercifully understood him and shoved a straw in his mouth. Upon feeling the cool water slide down his throat, Harry immediately began to feel better. Thanks, he murmured. Always, Ginny whispered, so no one else could hear. How long, he asked. Over 2 weeks, Harry, Neville said. Madame Pomfrey said that if he didn't wake up soon, you'd have to go to St. Mungo's. Hermione started sobbing. Don't, he told her. I thought you were dead, she cried into her hands. I did, I really did. And all I could do was just stand there. I couldn't think of anything to do. He looked in her direction, but all he could see was a blur of brown that might be her bushy hair. Glasses, he said. Ginny gently put them on his face. Hermione, you couldn't have done anything. Yes, I could. I know that cushioning charm. Professor Flitwick mentioned it in class last month, and I practiced it, but I didn't even think of it. Hermione, Ron said soothingly. We talked about this, remember? It isn't your fault. You know it isn't. You agreed that it wasn't. What happened, Harry? Neville asked. Over the top of Hermione's head, Ron mouthed Dobby, and Harry gave a quick nod. I don't know, he said. I felt like someone punched me in the back. Whoever was cracked your spine, Luna said helpfully. You broke lots of bones. And then I fell. I think I hit my head. Harry finished. My spine was cracked. You cracked your spine, broke your arm, and fractured your skull. Ginny's voice shook. You're lucky Hermione got a teacher as quickly as she did. Thanks, Hermione, he said. Harry, Neville said in a hushed voice. We reckon that your attack had something to do with that voice you heard. And if I just listened to you, Hermione hiccuped, maybe it wouldn't have happened. Hermione, Harry said firmly, despite the one giant ache that was his head. It wasn't your fault. Tell me about this theory of yours. She did shakily. Harry learned that while he'd been sleeping, his friends had frantically tried to figure out what had happened and who had been behind the attack. And they were sure it was an attack, because Hermione had seen the flash of light, and Madame Pomfrey had confirmed it. The fall had not cracked his spine. The stunning spell, or something similar, that Dobby had used had done that. Ron and Ginny had apparently thrown themselves at the mystery with as much vigor as Hermione and Neville. Luna appeared to be only vaguely interested. The theories as to who had been behind the attack were many and varied. Neville, voice shaking, suggested who wanted revenge for his foiled plans. Luna suggested a rogue Rickicloyer, much to Hermione's annoyance. Hermione herself thought that it had been someone under an invisibility cloak because she hadn't seen anyone and no one could apparate or disapparate inside Hogwarts. Harry suspected that Ron and Ginny had figured out the same thing he had. Dobby, unable to curse his broom, had tried a more direct approach. It was not until Madame Pomfrey, returning from an errand, realized that Harry was awake and kicked his friends out of the hospital wing that the speculation ended. You need to be more careful, she admonished him. I will, Harry lied. He spent the next few days slowly recovering. As his injuries healed, his boredom grew. He took to tormenting himself with his worries to alleviate it. Last time, all I had was a broken arm, and it wouldn't have been a big deal, but Lockhart tried to heal it, he told himself again and again. But this time, I got hurt a lot worse. What if everything we try to change is going to turn out like this? He asked Ginny and Ron that one night when they'd snuck out of the tower using his invisibility cloak. That's just Dobby, Ron said. He's a nutter. The whole reason why we came back was to change things, Ginny pointed out. Stop thinking about it for now. Halloween is coming up, Harry was surprised to realize that Halloween was less than a week away. Instead of focusing all his energy on worrying about things that may or may not happen, he decided to focus it on getting out of there before the Chamber of Secrets was opened. Ginny needed him to be alert, not brooding over the choices that they had made long ago. He did spare a moment to laugh at himself. When Dumbledore had first suggested the Tears of Merlin, he'd thought that they could change everything. He'd planned to destroy the diary as soon as it fell into their hands, to free Sirius the day they got back, and to prevent everything from happening as it had. But as soon as he had voiced these thoughts, jubilant though they were, the other Dumbledore had wisely pointed out that he was being a fool. Not that he'd said it in so many words, but his reasonable tone had made Harry feel all the more stupid. They couldn't change too much, not if they wanted to keep the upper hand. The sword was of vast importance, and so too was ensuring that it was Wormtail that took the steps needed for Voldemort's resurrection. The devil they knew was better than the devil they didn't. Dear Tom, Harry is all right. He's been released from the hospital wing and everything. Even though Madame Pomfrey said that he might have to move to St. Mungo's, he woke up. We were all very happy. And I'm happy. Except, Tom, there have been attacks against the school. A cat was hurt, and I woke up the next day with blood on my robes. I think it might have been me. I don't remember going down to the Halloween feast, and everything is a complete blank. I don't know what to think, Tom. I'm scared. Harry held his wand loosely at his side and stared at Draco Malfoy. The tension in Harry's belly did not come from facing Malfoy in a duel. Harry, with his added knowledge of spells and lots of practice, did not think that Malfoy really stood a chance. He tried not to let that thought make him feel smug, but still, the tension came from the fact that he was about to reveal himself as a Parselmouth to the entire school. He could almost hear them accusing him of being the heir of Slytherin. The sneaky git is going to do it, Harry thought. He'd made Draco angry by dodging all his spells and flooring him with Rictum Sempra. Harry didn't look at the crowd, but he knew that the loud laughter came from Ron. I wouldn't smile, Potter, Malfoy snapped. Harry deliberately yawned. What are you going to do, Malfoy? Try to hit me with a spell? You'll have to work on your aim. The Gryffindors laughed. Remember, boys, Lockhart said. Harry repressed the urge to attack him. Lockhart grated on his nerves. Disarm only this time. Harry bowed, not taking his eyes off Malfoy for even a second. Serpensortia. Harry grimaced slightly. He'd been hoping that things would happen a bit differently, although it had been a small hope. Malfoy had never been anything but predictable. He sighed. Here we go. Stop, Harry commanded. The snake, which had been blinking in confusion, did so. It lay placidly, staring at Harry. Harry was struck with an idea. In for a Canute, in for a Galleon. If everyone was going to think he was the heir of Slytherin, he might as well have some fun with Malfoy. Go back to the one who summoned you, he said. Then added, don't attack him. Don't bite him. Just scare him a little. And then he watched as the copperhead slithered back to Malfoy, entwined around his suddenly shaking legs, and licked its forked tongue. Malfoy screamed and stumbled backward. The entire hall was in silence. All were watching, riveted, as the snake followed. It appeared to be enjoying itself. Snape, looking shaken, finally vanished it. Malfoy ran back to Crabbe and Goyle, all dignity apparently forgotten. The whispers broke out immediately. Harry shrugged them off and turned to his friends. Neville was pale with shock, as was Hermione. Luna was staring at something else in the room entirely. Harry was not even sure that she'd noticed that he'd spoken Parseltongue. Ginny and Ron, however, were trying so hard not to laugh that they looked as though they had gas. They converged on him. Even Luna wandered over so that she stood near him, and, surrounding him, marched out of the hall. You're a Parselmouth, Hermione whispered once they'd reached the Gryffindor common room. Luna had followed them through the portrait hole despite the fact that she was a Ravenclaw. You can talk to snakes, Neville said in a shocked voice. Well, yeah, Harry said. I set a snake on my cousin Dudley once. Ron laughed. I'll bet he liked that. It isn't funny, Ron, Hermione said loudly. Now the whole school is going to think he's the heir of Slytherin. Everyone knows that Slytherin could talk to snakes too, Neville said. Harry isn't the heir of Slytherin, though, Ginny pointed out. Besides, Ron said comfortably, The snake didn't go after any Muggle-borns or anything like that. It went after Malfoy, the biggest ponce and pure blood there is. I didn't set it after Malfoy, Harry lied. I just told it to go back to the one who summoned it. That's what you said to it, Neville said. It looked like you were telling it to attack Malfoy. But it didn't attack Malfoy. It just went up to him and didn't do anything even when Malfoy kicked it, said Ginny. It doesn't really matter what it did or didn't do, Hermione said stubbornly. Everyone knows that the heir of Slytherin is the only one who can open the Chamber of Secrets. Harry very carefully did not look at Ginny. He could only imagine how she felt. It had begun again, just as they had intended. On Halloween night, Mrs. Norris had been petrified, and the warning had been painted on the wall. He'd sat in the common room, waiting for her to return. He wished that he could have followed her under the invisibility cloak to make sure that he was with her every step of the way. But Dumbledore had put his foot down. It was an unnecessary risk, he'd argued, and Harry had reluctantly agreed. So he'd been there when she'd left, and he'd been waiting for her when she came back. Who do you think it is? Neville asked. He lowered his voice, despite the fact that they were quite alone. Do you think it might be Malfoy? Nah. Ron shook his head. That kid hasn't got the brains. I think Professor McGonagall's the heir of Slytherin, said Luna. Only because she's the least likely person it could be, Hermione said waspishly. The only people we're sure it isn't are us, the professors, and Malfoy. I agree with Ron, she said stubbornly when Neville opened his mouth. I'm sure it isn't Malfoy. I suppose it's one of the older students. It could be you-know-who, Luna said vaguely. Harry looked at her, startled. Had Ginny told her? She has a point, Hermione said begrudgingly. You know who might be possessing another teacher, or a student. If that's the case, it could be anyone, Ron said. Harry saw his eyes flicker to Ginny, but he didn't think anyone else noticed. We've got to figure out who it is, Hermione said urgently. Otherwise people are going to suspect Harry, and maybe whatever petrified Mrs. Norris will attack a student next time. Harry looked at her. Then he turned away, wondering what might change because of the words that would come out of his mouth in a few moments. It can only be for the better, he told himself. I think we ought to keep working on this, he said. But, Hermione, do you know of any good spells? She looked confused. What do you mean? I mean, he gestured toward the door. Spells that will work in duels, like that body bind curse, or whatever. Well, she said slowly, I think I know a few. But why? Harry shrugged. Then, not wanting to downplay the importance, he said seriously, I think we should practice them, especially if it is really you-know-who again. That's a good idea, Harry, Ron said. His eyes gleamed. He too had wanted to begin Dumbledore's army again, earlier than last time. Ginny was grinning, and Luna, beside her, looked interested. You mean we should duel each other? Hermione asked, perplexed. But won't we be doing that at the dueling club? Ron snorted. With that Ponce? He's got mothballs where most of us keep our brains. We could, I don't know, find useful spells in books, Ginny said, and learn them until we've got them down. I'm useless with spells, Neville said hopelessly. No, you aren't. Ron, Harry, and Ginny said so loudly that Neville shrunk back. I'm sure you'll be just fine, Ginny said in a quieter voice. But Hermione still looked so confused that Harry wondered if he had made a mistake in bringing it up. She might not be ready. Listen, Hermione, Ron said forcefully. Think, what if Luna's right? What if you know who is behind all this stuff? We got to do something. Lockhart certainly isn't teaching us anything useful. Don't look at me like that. You know he isn't. We got to learn how to protect ourselves. Harry nearly applauded. Exactly what I was thinking, mate. I suppose there are books in the library that have really advanced spells that we won't learn until at least our 4th year, Hermione said after a long moment. I can make a list, and we could try to learn them. Brilliant, Ginny beamed. I'll help. There's no guarantee we'll actually be able to learn them, though, Hermione said, still doubtful. But I do think Ron's right. We've got to try, just in case. What of you, Neville? Harry asked. I still don't think I'll be any good, but I'll try. I think you might surprise yourself, Harry said. Harry felt so good at restarting Dumbledore's army, albeit with far fewer members, that he found himself almost impervious to the gossip that surrounded him and followed him wherever he went. Even though Harry was dead certain that people were talking about him, he did not let it bother him. Some of it, he knew, was the result of being a man grown, in mind if not in body. But a lot of it was the fact that despite Hermione's initial misgivings, she had thrown herself into the task of finding appropriate spells with the same fervor she did try to find a clue about who was opening the chamber. Ron and Ginny were, if anything, even happier than he was. "Excellent, mate," Ron said, punching the air. "I think it's brilliant, and wonderful of Luna to give us such a nice opening." Ginny crowed. She sat on the floor, leaning against Harry's legs. "If we can keep it going, they'll be more prepared for what's to come." "Speaking of Luna," Harry grinned, "are you certain you didn't tell her?" "Of course not," Ginny said immediately. "She doesn't know about the basilisk or the diary, or Dumbledore's army. All she really knows is that we're from the future." "Who knows what Luna knows?" Ron said wisely. "I wish she would stop calling me Arthur," Harry said. "I wish she would stop calling Ron Lancelot," Ginny said wryly. "That's just disgusting." "Things are going well," Ron observed. "We've started the DA again. We've done well with keeping the students away from the basilisk, and Christmas is almost here." "Yes," Ginny agreed. "Brilliant idea with the coins, Harry. I know I've said that before, but I don't think I could bear it if any of the students got hurt. It's a huge weight off my mind." "Agreed," Harry said, rubbing her shoulders. "Although spending the evening with Colin after the Gryffindor match was a bit weird. I'd forgotten how much he practically worships me at this stage." "You didn't really need to," Ginny said. "The only reason why he was out so late last time was because he was trying to visit you in the hospital wing." Harry shrugged. "I just wanted to be safe. He was decent company, I guess. His constant questions kept me from brooding while you were gone." Harry supposed it was true. He'd cornered Colin a few weeks previously, and had asked if he'd wanted to play Exploding Snap. Colin, quivering with excitement, had stammered out an agreement. "And if we're right," Ginny said, "we won't even need to do anything about Justin Finch-Fletchley, Hermione, or Penelope Clearwater." "True," Harry said. "I am so ready for Christmas." He leaned his head back. "Me too," Ron grinned. "More than ready. It'll be the highlight of my year," Harry said. "Since setting the snake on Malfoy already happened. You saw him, right? I thought he was going to wet his pants. I thought I was going to hurt something. It took that much effort not to laugh." Ginny laughed. The look on his face was priceless. "The slimy git. Tries to set a poisonous snake on the school. It just serves him right, honestly." "How's Hermione coming with the research?" Ron asked. "She's doing all right," Ginny said. "She's found loads of useful spells, but she keeps saying that they're too complicated for people our age." "I figure out a way around that," Harry said. "I've ordered that set of books Remus and Sirius got me for Christmas during our 5th year. We'll all practice them over Christmas and show her that we can do it." "Good idea, Harry," Ron said approvingly. "She won't rest until she'll be able to do them too, just because we can." "She's already trying to figure out where we're going to do this," Ginny said. "She's already figured out that this should be kept a secret. But once she comes back from the holidays, we'll have discovered this place." "Just think," Harry said. "Once Christmas and the chamber are over with, we'll have an entire year without worrying about someone trying to kill us." HPHPHPHPHPHPHP. Harry Potter, A Parselmouth by Marigold Piper. Lucius Malfoy revealed yesterday that his son, Draco Malfoy, a second-year Slytherin, was attacked by a snake at the bidding of Harry Potter. This is only the most recent in a series of disturbing events that have taken place at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Eyewitness accounts claim that on Halloween night, a message appeared on one of the walls, stating that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened once more. For a more detailed account of the first time it opened, at the hand of the now gamekeeper Rubeus Hagrid, turn to page 4. For a reminder of the myths and legends surrounding the chamber, also turn to page 4. While most were under the impression that this was a prank perpetrated by one of the students, as no one has been harmed, the caretaker at Hogwarts believes otherwise. Argus Filch, a squib, told me that his cat had been petrified, and he suspected that the Chamber of Secrets had, indeed, been opened. This news is even more disturbing in light of Harry Potter's abilities. Parseltongue is an ability long associated with dark wizards. Indeed, he who must not be named was a Parselmouth, as was Anton the Evil and Garth Silvertongue. An unusual affinity for snakes is a warning sign. It also must be mentioned that Potter has a long-standing friendship with Rubeus Hagrid. It is common knowledge that they spend at least one afternoon a week together. Potter and Hagrid are unusually close, said Lucius Malfoy. Hagrid isn't known for discretion. Potter can easily weasel anything out of him, including how to open the Chamber of Secrets. Albus Dumbledore, however, stated in a reply to my first owl, Harry Potter is not opening the Chamber of Secrets. He declined to say anything further, despite the fact that I felt duty-bound to ask if Potter has an alibi. In light of the events, the article written several years ago, strongly cautioning us not to trust Harry Potter automatically, must be reviewed. See page 2 for a reprinting. Remember, there is no proof whatsoever that Potter is opening the Chamber of Secrets. But I urge parents to caution their children over the school holidays to be very careful around him. There is still the terrible power that must be considered. It may be that the terrible power is his ability to speak Parseltongue, or it may be that he has somehow tamed the legendary monster of Salazar Slytherin, and that is what he might unleash upon the wizarding world.
Hello there, Harry Potter fans. We are continuing on with Backward with Purpose Part 1, Always and Always, by Dead Woodpecker. And here we are with Chapter 9, The First Divergence.
Chapter 9, The First Divergence. Chapter text. You are certain this does not concern you? Dumbledore asked. His eyes were very serious. I myself do not like the level of suspicion aimed at you. Professor Flitwick has expressed rather severe doubts, and Professor McGonagall assured him that she would keep an eye on you. Harry shrugged, feeling slightly fatalistic. They were together in the room of requirement, along with Snape, Ron, and Ginny. The article, Merlin, he was weary of damn articles, had been in yesterday's issue of the Daily Prophet. This was the first chance they had had to speak of it. The other students had left for the Christmas holidays earlier that day, and Hogwarts had been abuzz with rumor and speculation. People have been watching him very closely. It's just happening a little earlier this time, that's all, he said. A lot earlier, Ginny murmured. Harry took a deep breath. That's not to say that I don't find it disturbing. I do, I swear. But he lifted his hands in a gesture of helplessness. What can I do about it? I'm not going to have a press release or anything. Your moment of fun had bigger consequences than you thought, Snape said nastily. What? Ron said loudly. It's not Harry's fault. How could he know that Lucius Malfoy would go mental? I shouldn't have done it, Harry admitted. The elated feeling of having a laugh at Malfoy had passed, and now he regretted the mad urge. Although, in his own defense, Ron was right. But I had no idea that there'd be another damn article. I'd like to shove my wand up Lucius Malfoy's arse, Ginny said, her eyes narrowed. The nerve of him, honestly. He's blaming Harry when he's the one that gave me the diary. I agree, said Dumbledore. Although I would, perhaps, use my wand to hex him instead. I think you are right, Harry. There is nothing we can do for now. The speculation will die off soon enough, and things will be back to what passes for normal around here. Snape sneered. Professor, Harry began, what do you think this will do to our plans? Dumbledore looked thoughtful. Ron sat up straighter in his chair. We've got to do it, Harry. I swear, I'll kill that rat if we don't do it soon. I might even help you. Weasley, Snape said smoothly. Professor, Harry asked. It might have unforeseen consequences, Dumbledore said delicately. Possibly even another article. Will they believe that Pettigrew is responsible? Ginny asked forcefully. We can deal with another article. But is public opinion against Harry enough that Pettigrew will be allowed to go free with a slap on the wrist, a welcome back to the living party, and a paltry fine for being an unregistered animagus? I assure you, Dumbledore said, that Pettigrew will be sentenced, and Sirius will go free. His eyes were very cold. Harry nodded, relieved. Ginny squeezed his hand, and Ron heaved a huge sigh. I can't even imagine not having him on our side, Harry thought as the three of them returned to Gryffindor Tower. Things would be impossible without him, and even Snape. The truth was, When he'd seen the heading of the article, his stomach had dropped to his feet and had not returned for nearly an hour. Hermione had wanted to talk about it, but that had been the last thing he wanted to do. So he'd pretty much avoided the rest of the students until they left. Hermione had been quite annoyed with him when she'd finally cornered him to say goodbye. Not watching where he was going, he walked straight into someone and had to catch himself on the wall to keep from falling over. "Why are you three out so late?" Percy asked suspiciously. "Is another Philosopher's Stone in danger?" Ron laughed. "Nah." He leaned forward and whispered, "We were in the kitchens. Fred and George told us how to get in. 3 plates of food at dinner weren't enough." Percy said wryly. "Another 2 topped it off," Ron said, patting his belly. "This way I won't get hungry in the middle of the night." Ginny laughed. "I only had hot chocolate," she said. "You're awfully pale, Ginny," Percy said, concerned. "Maybe you should have had a second cup." "I'll do that next time," Ginny promised. "You ought to come too, Perce. The house elves are really nice about it." "I know," Percy said. When he noticed the way all 3 of them stared at him, he continued in a defensive tone. "What? I've known how to get into the kitchen for ages. Sometimes I study there. And sometimes you take your girlfriend there?" Harry asked, grinning. "I imagine you like eating with her away from everyone." Percy looked genuinely stunned. "You know about Penelope?" "Yeah," Ron said. We found out over the summer." "We weren't snooping," Ginny promised. "But there was an owl, and you were holed up in your room the entire time. We put 2 and 2 together." "Just as long as you don't tell Fred and George," Percy said. "They'd never give it a rest." "We know," Harry, Ron, and Ginny said in unison. Percy laughed. He then turned to Harry. "Just so you know," he said pompously, "I don't believe any of the ridiculous rumors about you." "Thanks, Percy," Harry said. "That article in the Daily Prophet made me question the author's sanity." Percy shook his head. I was old enough to remember what it was like before you defeated you-know-who. Uncle Fabian and Uncle Gideon were killed just that summer. Mom and Dad hardly ever took us outside the burrow, but when they did..." Percy paused. "I can't even describe the differences. You would have recognized Diagon Alley. And, Ron, Ginny, you were both too young to remember this. I remember how everything changed. More than that, he drew himself up to his full height. I can't believe that people would think you're the heir of Slytherin, especially after what happened last year with the stone." "It's those damn articles," Ron pointed out. "Harry's getting very bad press." Harry, said a familiar voice. Harry groaned silently. "Hi, Professor Lockhart," he said glumly. Percy's words had filled him with pride and relief, but Lockhart had ruined it. He beamed around at them, his toothy grin gleaming in the dim light of the corridor. It was almost curfew, and the lamps had dimmed, a silent warning for students to hurry back to their common rooms. He was, if anything, even more unbearable this time around. Harry had gotten better at dodging him, but that made Lockhart even more determined to corner him. "Good evening, Professor Lockhart," Percy said stiffly. Ron and Ginny didn't say anything. "Walk with me," Harry, Lockhart offered. "I can give you some pointers on how to deal with the press. I read that dreadful article. If you want to retain your popularity, you've got to act fast." Harry grimaced. "I'm not worried about my popularity." Lockhart laughed. "Of course you are. Famous people are always targets. There are jealous people in the wizarding world, Harry. Even my own brother. He says some very nasty things about me sometimes. But you've got to use the added press to your advantage." "Professor," Percy interrupted. "Curfew is almost upon us. They need to get back to the common room." Harry sent him a grateful look. "Yeah, if we get caught after hours again, we'll get more detentions." "Mum would go spare," Ron said. Lockhart's smile became somewhat fixed. "But you're with me, and I'm a teacher. Even Severus Snape wouldn't dare punish you if I explained to him." "Harry, didn't you say that you still needed to wrap presents for your aunt and uncle?" Ginny asked. "You'd better do that tonight, otherwise their gift won't reach them before Christmas." "We've become very good liars," Harry thought a little guiltily as he climbed through the portrait hole. Lockhart had reluctantly let him go, although Harry could tell that his determination to take Harry under his wing was only growing. "I can't believe him. I can't believe him," Ron said, echoing Harry's thoughts. "I reckon he's a fraud." "Who's a fraud?" Fred asked. He and George were playing Exploding Snap in the otherwise deserted common room. It seemed as though everyone else had gone home. The Weasleys and Harry were the only ones staying over the holidays. Lockhart, Ginny said. He's useless in classes, Percy said. This is a very important year. If I expect to pass my defense against the Dark Arts Newt next year, I'll have to have better instruction. Honestly, I don't know what Dumbledore was thinking when he hired that man. Percy, George said, for once you're talking sense. All he does in our class is read to us from his stupid books. Fred rolled his eyes. You can't have it worse than Harry, Ron said. He always makes Harry act them out. Last week he had to play a banshee. Everyone laughed. That is worse, Percy admitted. Although I'm surprised the kid isn't terrified, George said. You know, with Harry being the heir of Slytherin and all, Fred said. Harry was about to open his mouth and tell the other Weasleys that he, Ron, Ginny, Hermione, Neville, and Luna were starting their own dueling club. He had to be honest with himself. He wanted the DA back, all of it. But he had been right to decide not to back in the summer. Just the 6 of them, that was fine, and it would have to do for now. No matter that Harry's intentions were good, the fact that he was so interested in learning spells and teaching others could only be misconstrued. He suspected that if he restarted Dumbledore's army in the present climate, it would be like adding oil to a fire. And the twins, Harry trusted them with his life, but they would have no idea why it was so important to keep a secret. Harry, Ginny touched his arm. Yeah, we don't really think you're the heir of Slytherin, George said seriously. Oh, Harry said. I know, but thanks. Anyone want to play Exploding Snap? Ron asked, dispelling the tension. Christmas came quickly, and Harry awoke to find several parcels at the foot of his bed. Ron, bright-eyed, was eagerly ripping into his own. Harry yawned, stretched, and put on his glasses. Merry Christmas! Ginny came barreling into the room, carrying her own load of presents. I wanted to open mine in here with you too. Harry beamed at her. He opened his first gift. It was from the Dursleys, and it was as miserly as usual, one sock. Ron's gift, badly wrapped, was a wand holster made of holly, to match Harry's wand. Thanks, Ron, he said. Look, you got a present from Mom and Dad. Ginny said. Her face fell a little. Harry took it and felt a pang. The package was the wrong size for a sweater, and, sure enough, when he opened it, he found homemade fudge. I shouldn't have expected it. Harry scolded himself. Just because you think of them as family doesn't mean they think the same of you. This looks delicious, he said. Your mum's cooking always is. Oh, Harry, Ginny looked at him. It's all right, he said quietly. I shouldn't have expected it, that's all. Mum's off her rocker, Ron offered. Probably you'll get one next year. Get one what? Fred poked his head in. Nice haul this year, eh? He was wearing his sweater. Actually, he was wearing George's. It had a big G on the front. A brain, Ron said. Harry's lost his, and he was hoping it would turn up in one of the packages. The excuse was very feeble, and if Fred had heard Ron's comment about his mom, it would be over. Not that much damage would be done. He could tell Fred that he'd felt like a part of the family over the summer, and Ron had told him that Mrs. Weasley might have made him a sweater. It would be a little humiliating, but the secret would be safe. It wasn't a big deal. Fred, however, did not seem to be at all suspicious. He nodded sagely. Thought you might have left your brain at the burrow then? He winked at Harry. Don't worry. If it was there, Mum would have sent it on long before this. Ginny laughed. The rest of the day was so enjoyable that it made up for the fact that Harry was still a little depressed about the lack of a sweater. They all marched out onto the snowy grounds and had a battle with snowballs, as they had done at the Burrow last year. Then, they trooped over to Hagrid's house and sang Christmas carols. The feast was some of the best food Harry had ever tasted. After several hours of eating, Harry finally pushed the remains of his second treacle tart. He wished he had more room in his stomach for a third, like Ron did. Meet me in the room of requirement, he breathed in Ginny's ear when no one was looking. Percy was engaged in a battle of rubber chickens with George, and Fred was cheering them on. She nodded. Merry Christmas, Ginny, he said when they were finally alone. Ron, who had been surprisingly tactful, had claimed that he was going straight up to bed. Merry Christmas, Harry, she said. The room of requirement had provided a large armchair that seated two, and a roaring fire. Ginny leaned up against Harry and sighed in contentment. He put his arm around her and stroked her hair. "I hope you like your gift," Harry said, knowing that he couldn't give her anything he really wanted to. He'd given her a snow globe of Hogwarts. It wasn't like a muggle snow globe. Every time Ginny shook it, something different would show. The first time she'd done it, it had shown tiny Quidditch players playing what looked to be an exciting game. Another shake, and they'd seen the giant squid that lived in the lake wave a merry hello. Even Hagrid had made an appearance. "I loved it," she said. Harry could tell that she was smiling. "It's beautiful, and it represents everything we're trying to protect." "It's not your only gift," Harry said. When she tilted her head back to look at him, he moved his hand to the side of her face and kissed her. It wasn't fiery and passionate. Harry was ever mindful of the fact that their bodies weren't ready for anything more. It was a promise, though. He tried to put all the tenderness he felt for her into it. "I like that gift even more," Ginny said when they parted. "It reminds me of my 17th, Harry said. "Except it wasn't a goodbye kiss," she pointed out. "Never again. I'll never leave you behind again," Harry said. "Except when I have to," he added to himself. But he stopped thinking about it the moment he was aware of the direction his thoughts were taking. That day was long in the future. HPHPHPHPHPHPHP. Christmas Day ended, and the morning of the 26th dawned clear and bright, although the air was frigid enough to require warming spells if they wanted to go outside. The haze of contentment that had stolen over Harry during the time he'd spent with Ginny in the Room of Requirement had been replaced with grim purpose the moment he woke up. Ron was in a similar mood as they walked to breakfast. Harry was never more aware of the fact that while their bodies had the appearance of boys, not even in their teenage years, they had already grown up. Not only grown up, but had been forced into adulthood by loss and years of fighting for their lives. Dumbledore was in the hall when they entered, and he looked at them sharply. Harry gave a short nod. Today was the day to play a game and catch a rat. The fact that the rat would not be held in Azkaban for nearly long enough rebelled with his instincts. Unfortunately, it was necessary. Ron nudged him. "Nervous?" Harry shook his head. "Not about tonight. I worry about later." "You've caught him before. You'll do it again," Ron said comfortably. And Harry had, though it had been more a happy accident than anything else. After what he'd done to Minerva McGonagall, they'd taken a brief break from Horcrux hunting to trace the man who was responsible for so much pain. It was cold and wet in a small town called Spinner's End. It wasn't much to look at. It had none of the charm of older villages. It had been built during the Industrial Revolution, and the town's life clearly centered around the ugly building that spewed smoke into the air. "You're sure he's here, Harry?" Ron whispered. "That's what Creature said," Harry said, just as quietly. He'd not wanted to place the elf in danger, so instead of asking him to bring Wormtail to them, he'd asked him to find him and report back. He'd also ordered the elf to remain hidden, to not let anyone see him. Who knew what Voldemort would do if Creature had traced Wormtail to his hidden lair? Which house? Hermione stood with her hands on her hips, peering left and right. The factory was not only ugly, it stank, and she wrinkled her nose. "That one," Harry pointed. "Good thing it's not under the Fidelius charm." "Harry," Ron said, "what if Snape's here? What if he is?" Harry asked coldly. "That just means we'll have to fight two of them, not just one. I'd call that lucky." "Don't be arrogant, Harry," Hermione scolded. "Snape is a skilled wizard, you know that." "Fine." Harry blew out a breath, not really paying attention to her. "Can we get on with this? I'm not leaving, even if Snape's here." She muttered something under her breath, and he was thankful that he couldn't hear what was said. Harry was almost frightened by his own rage. It had not abated since Ginny had come with the news that Professor McGonagall was now a permanent resident at St. Mungo's, with a bed next to Frank and Alice Longbottom. Ginny had been sobbing so hard that it had been difficult to understand. But when the truth sunk in, and when Harry realized that the brave, which had been driven insane by the man who had betrayed Harry's parents to Voldemort, cold purpose had overtaken him. "You're still going to kill him?" Ron asked. He sounded satisfied. "Oh yes," Harry said. Hermione didn't say a word. None of them smiled. No matter what Pettigrew had done, none of them found joy in killing, not even him. The enchantments, Hermione, Harry murmured as they drew closer to the house. She raised her wand and muttered several complex spells. The anti-apparition spell was especially needful. No one could get in, and no one could get out. Pettigrew wouldn't be able to use his dark mark to summon Voldemort or any of the other Death Eaters. As soon as she was done, Harry raised his own wand and blasted the front door into splinters and kindling. He cast Sonorous on his own voice. "Come on, fight, Wormtail," he said, and strode in. He ducked as soon as he saw a flash of green light. It just barely missed him. Ron swore loudly and sent a blasting hex in the direction of the rat. "Hi, Scabbers," Ron said. The rat was alone in the house. Snape did not come running, nor did any of the other Death Eaters. It was 3-on-1. "Stand down, Ron," Harry said. "Wormtail is mine. Hear that, Wormtail? We're going to duel. Harry, you don't want to kill me." The rat's eyes were wide with fear. Harry watched him try to hide the fact that he had pressed his dark mark, fully intending to call for Voldemort. "That won't work," Harry said. The rat jerked in surprise. "We've trapped you in here. Like a rat. This ends today." "I don't understand," he whimpered. "You didn't want to kill me before. Your father." "My father would understand," Harry interrupted. "You're done hurting people, Wormtail. You're done tearing apart families and torturing people. You're done." Wormtail was fast, but Harry was faster. He dodged the green light. "Try to kill me, Wormtail? I thought you know who wanted to kill me himself." "Don't. I have to defend myself," Wormtail said. "How in the name of Merlin did you ever end up in Gryffindor?" Harry sneered. "You're a coward, a betrayer, and a murderer. Even Snape is less of a coward than you." "You don't understand," Wormtail said. It was the last thing he ever said. Moments later, he lay choking on his own blood. "I regret," said Harry, "that my father ever trusted you." Ron and Harry left after they saw Professor McGonagall leave. They followed a safe distance behind her, making sure that she was heading for her office. She needed to be on hand after Pettigrew was confronted. They made sure to chatter about Quidditch and homework just in case she was listening. Her office door was shut by the time they reached it. "Hello, boys," Dumbledore's voice. "I trust you're having a good holiday?" "Yeah," said Ron. "It's been loads of fun." "Loads," Harry echoed truthfully. "Did you have a good Christmas too, Professor?" The light tone was at odds with Dumbledore's serious eyes when he replied, "Thank you, Mr. Potter, I did. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a question for Professor McGonagall." He paused. "Good luck," he whispered. Ginny was awake and ready when they entered the common room. It was empty. The other Weasleys were probably still in bed. It wasn't even 9 o'clock yet. "Finally," Harry said. "Still remember that spell?" Ron asked Ginny anxiously. She rolled her eyes. "Yes, Ron," she said. "How many times are you going to ask me?" "Just checking," he said defensively. Harry felt a little knot of apprehension unfurl in his belly. He was glad it was there. He couldn't afford to be cocky. He had to stay on his toes. Wormtail was a coward, but he wasn't completely useless. There was always a chance that things could go wrong, no matter how carefully they planned. "Let's do this," he said. Scabbers was asleep. He had no idea that they planned to reveal him and send him along to Azkaban. This had been a long time coming. "Ron, the Chudley Cannons are never going to win," Harry said as they entered the boys' dormitory. "They're the bottom of the league. You should support, I don't know, Puddlemere United or something." "Don't be stupid, Harry," Ginny said. "Ron likes rooting for the losing team." "They'll win one of these times," Ron said stubbornly. They all gripped their wands tightly. Harry's palms were slightly damp, and his heart thundered in his chest. And Ginny said, "Anima Revelio." An instant later, the familiar form of Peter Pettigrew appeared. He had retained some of the rat's characteristics: small beady eyes, pinched features, and crooked teeth. He was fat and wearing clothes that smelled as though he had not bothered to clean them in several months. He blinked in confusion and dawning horror. "Imperio," Harry breathed. Wormtail's eyes immediately glazed over as he became an extension of Harry, Harry's puppet. He moved jerkily toward Ginny and grabbed her wand out of her unresisting fingers. He then grabbed her and poked her in the stomach with it. Ron was completely silent, his wand pointed carefully. Ginny screamed. Harry could not help but admire her acting skills, which had obviously been honed and polished during the last year and a half. The sound of it raised the hairs on the back of his neck. And then she screamed again. Ron started shouting. "Do it, Harry," Ginny whispered. She was not afraid. He saw nothing but trust in her eyes. Grimacing, he forced Pettigrew to cut her, a deep cut on her shoulder, using the same spell that Harry had once used to kill him. Ginny screamed again. Harry stood still. He had never been especially skilled with the unforgivables. A good thing, to his mind, and it took all of his concentration to hold Wormtail under the spell. Wormtail was fighting it, the initial confusion giving way to panic. Harry walked over to Wormtail. Sweat beaded on his brow as the panic Wormtail felt made his surprisingly strong. Lightning fast, he grabbed Ginny's wand and replaced it with his own. The curse lifted, and he spun Ginny out of the way. Several things happened at once. The door slammed open, and Percy was framed in the doorway, still in his pajamas. His mouth was agape, and his hair stood on end. "What the hell?" he cried in shock. "Percy!" Ron shouted. "Get McGonagall." Ginny clutched her shoulder, the bleeding already starting to slow. Harry turned back to Wormtail and was slow, too slow to react, to stop him. There was a bang and a flash of light, and Ginny crumpled to the floor. Harry roared with rage. He could not think. He was blind and deaf to everything else except for Ginny. He forgot about Pettigrew and the game they were playing and rushed to Ginny's side. He fell to his knees when he saw her chest move and watched her draw breath. He looked up just in time to see Wormtail, apparently deciding that Harry was not the most immediate threat, point his wand at Percy. "No!" he bellowed, and not even thinking about it. Not worrying about the curse that might come out of Harry's own wand, he leapt, putting himself between Wormtail and Percy. Pain hit every nerve in his body, and he crumpled to the floor, senseless from it. "Expelliarmus!" Ron shouted, and the pain ended. Harry watched as his own wand arced through the air and into Ron's waiting hand. He gripped Ginny's wand and stood shakily to his feet. "What the hell is going on?" "Ah," Ginny moaned, keeping his wand on the cowed man. Harry once more moved to her side. "Are you all right?" he asked. She didn't answer, only groaned. "Incarcerus," Harry said, and watched as Pettigrew's hands and feet were bound together with silver bonds. "What the hell just happened?" Ron's lips were white with fury. "Scabbers. Percy, get McGonagall. The rat, that man was Scabbers." For a moment, Percy did not move, just stared at Harry as though he had never seen him before in his life. His mouth opened and closed, and Harry did not think that he had ever seen the pompous Percy so overset. "Damn it, Percy!" Ron shouted. "Ginny's hurt." Percy ran. He thundered down the stairs. Just as he left, the twins came rushing in and stared around at the room, and a stranger laying bound on the floor. "What the hell?" George said uncertainly. "Go get Madame Pomfrey," Harry told them. "Go. Ginny's hurt." George left immediately. Fred stared between Ginny and Pettigrew, his face pale beneath all his freckles. He licked his lips. Care to explain? He tried to sound flippant, but his voice shook. He sounded very young. "We don't know what the hell just happened," Ron lied. "We were just talking about Quidditch and then Scabbers." He changed Fred into that man. "Scabbers?" Fred asked faintly. "He must be an animagus. They can turn into different animals like McGonagall." "What's this about a man?" McGonagall's voice. She sounded confused and angry. "Weasley, calm yourself." She pushed Fred out of the way and stopped in shock. Dumbledore, following closely behind, almost bumped into her. She said nothing for an entire minute. "Peter Pettigrew," she whispered, clutching her heart. "Peter Pettigrew." Wormtail began struggling against his bonds, his eyes wide with panic. Dumbledore waved his wand, and Wormtail was still, his eyes closed. Despite the situation, Harry could not help but be impressed, and wondered what spell could send a man straight to sleep. A useful one, he thought. "Professor," Harry said urgently. "Ginny's hurt." Dumbledore's eyes sharpened as he looked at Ginny. He waved his wand for a second time, muttering something under his breath. A pale blue light wrapped around Ginny. For a moment, it glowed red, then faded. "She will be all right," he said finally. "A few days in the hospital wing should do it." Ron fell onto his bed in relief, and Harry's knees felt weak. "Explain to me what happened," Dumbledore ordered. "I would like to know as well," Professor McGonagall said. Ron began, his voice shaking slightly. "We were talking about Quidditch, and all of a sudden that man was here. He used to be Scabbers." "Scabbers," Dumbledore said sharply. "Yeah, my pet rat," Ron clarified. Madame Pomfrey took that moment to run in, her hands full of different potions. Harry saw a bottle of Skeelgrow peeking out of the pocket of her apron. She'd come prepared for anything. "She'll be all right," she announced, after doing the same spell that Dumbledore had. "A few days should do it," she said, pouring a dark blue potion down Ginny's throat. "This'll send her to sleep. Someone help me take her to the hospital wing." George, still silent, went with her. Fred looked torn between wanting to go with his twin and his sister and staying to hear what happened. In the end, he followed the other two. "Your pet rat, Mr. Weasley?" McGonagall lifted her eyebrows. "Yeah," he said. Then he grabbed Harry's wand and did something to him. "What?" "I don't know. It made his eyes go all funny," Ron said. "Like he was sleepwalking or something." "The Imperius Curse," Dumbledore muttered. "What then?" He grabbed Ginny," Ron said, "and cut her on the shoulder. And then—" "It was weird, Professor," Harry said. "I felt like I was floating, but then it stopped as soon as he cut Ginny. So I grabbed her wand and pulled her away. And then he hurt her, and Percy came in. He tried to attack Percy with the Cruciatus Curse." Percy's voice wobbled, but Harry jumped in front of it, so it hit him instead. "And then I used that disarming spell that Lockhart taught us," Ron said, "and Harry made the ropes appear. And then Percy went to get you," Harry finished. Professor McGonagall was completely bewildered. "I don't understand," she pointed at Pettigrew. "He's supposed to be dead. What does it mean, Albus?" "Just to confirm." Dumbledore bent down and pulled up Pettigrew's sleeve, revealing the dark mark. McGonagall sat down hard on the nearest bed. "The dark mark," she said, horrified. "Pettigrew is a Death Eater." "So it would seem," Dumbledore said. "We'll have to alert the Ministry. But if my suspicions prove to be true, Peter Pettigrew is responsible for the betrayal of James and Lily Potter." He lifted Wormtail's hand, revealing the missing finger. "And I suspect for the deaths of those muggles. Remember, all they ever found of Pettigrew was his finger." "And Sirius Black is innocent?" McGonagall asked. "He's been in Azkaban all this time, and he's innocent?" Dumbledore bowed his head. "I'll take him to my office. Mr. Weasley, Mr. Potter, would you come with me?" Harry nodded. "Are you sure that's wise?" McGonagall asked. "If Pettigrew really did betray his parents, he's just a child, Albus. Mr. Potter needs to understand what has happened today," Dumbledore said. "He deserves to ask his own questions. He deserves to know why." "I'll alert the Ministry." McGonagall stood up. "Give it a few more minutes, Minerva," Dumbledore said. "Give me a half an hour, and then alert them." McGonagall looked as though she understood. "Weasley," she said to Percy, "go check on your sister, and make sure the twins aren't harassing Madame Pomfrey." Dumbledore levitated Pettigrew, and Harry and Ron silently followed the older wizard and his prisoner out the door. "Sirius Black," McGonagall muttered as they passed. "HP, HP, 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 HP." Snape was waiting for them, pacing the floor, an unreadable expression on his face. As soon as he set eyes on Pettigrew, however, his face darkened. He was furious. He stared at him with such black rage and malevolence that Harry felt the urge to remind the potion's master not to kill Wormtail. Fawkes, seated on his perch, trilled and fanned out his tail feathers. "I'm going to kill him," Snape announced. "Not now," he said when Dumbledore, Ron, and Harry made to stand in front of Pettigrew. "Not yet, but I will be the one to kill him." Harry and Ron exchanged glances. "Harry killed him last time," Ron told him. Snape looked startled. "You really did?" "Yes," Harry said. "I provoked him into a duel at a house in Spinner's End. Your house, I believe. He was holed up there. I used your own curse to do it. Sectum Sempra. I meant what I said." "Potter," Snape sneered. "Don't get in my way. He'll die by my wand." "If you say I called it first," Ron said, "I'm going to have to laugh at you, and I don't care how many detentions you give me for it." Harry stared at Snape for a long time. Pettigrew had led to the events that killed Harry's mother, whom Snape had loved just as much as Harry loved Ginny. Despite the fact that Lily had married James, that love had never waned, and had led to the trust Dumbledore placed in Snape, and the fact that Snape had ultimately laid down his life. Harry completely understood why Snape wanted to kill Pettigrew. "All right," Harry said. Snape nodded. "Shall we wake him?" Dumbledore asked. Not waiting for an answer, he whispered, "Innervate." The rat's eyes popped open, and he began thrashing against his bonds. "W, what is this? W, where am I?" "You're in my office," Dumbledore said pleasantly, "and you're about to tell us the truth." The truth. His eyes darted from Dumbledore to Snape to Harry. "I don't understand. Harry attacked me." He pointed. "You sold my parents to Voldemort." It wasn't a question. He felt grim satisfaction when Wormtail's entire body flinched. "You were their secret keeper, and you gave him the information as soon as you could. You sold Order's secrets to him as well," Dumbledore said. His voice was still pleasant, though Harry felt chilled by the cold emanating from him. "For an entire year before their deaths. And you killed a street full of muggles," Ron added. "No," Wormtail shouted desperately. "That was SS Sirius BB Black. Everyone knows that. I fake my death. He's going to come after me." "Sirius Black," Harry said lightly, "would have died rather than betray his friends." "You don't know," Wormtail argued. "How could you possibly know? You're just a boy." "Stop arguing," Harry said. "Tell us the truth. You know who forced me." Pettigrew said. "Filthy liar," Ron sneered. "What a coward. Can't even man up to his own allegiances." "Voldemort did not force you," Harry told him. "You did it willingly because you were afraid of fighting what you thought was a losing battle. You thought that Voldemort would win, so you took the Dark Mark. I can't believe that my father never saw you for what you were." "James wouldn't want you to kill me," Wormtail sputtered. "You're not going to die tonight," Dumbledore said. "Tonight, I expect you'll be in Ministry custody, awaiting your trial. But before that," Snape said silkily, "I'm afraid we have some business to attend to." "Your version of events does not coincide perfectly with what actually happened," Dumbledore said. "I'm afraid that your confusion might be interpreted differently once you're questioned by Aurors." "Harry used an unforgivable on me." Harry shook his head. "That's not true. You used an unforgivable on me. 2 of them. BB Butt." Dumbledore and Snape raised their wands in the same instant. "Allow me to go first," Dumbledore said. "His memory needs to be modified before you confront him." He whispered a vastly complex charm that made the air seem to shimmer, and Wormtail's eyes glazed over. His entire body was rigid and shaking, and if it weren't for the fact that his face was utterly blank, Harry would have thought that the man was in terrible pain. Then he slumped over and appeared to be asleep. "That will do it," Dumbledore said. "He'll wake up in a few moments, once the charm settles into his brain." "Will you teach us how to do that?" Ron asked, gaping. "I don't want to learn," Harry said immediately. "I hate memory charms." "Later, Mr. Weasley," Dumbledore murmured. Snape walked over to stand just in front of Wormtail, wand pointed at his face. As soon as Wormtail blinked in confusion, he whispered, "Confundo." He leaned down until his hooked nose was inches from Wormtail. "You will tell the Ministry what happened tonight. You will tell them that you betrayed Lily and James Potter. You will tell them that you cursed those muggles and killed them. You will tell them you did so because Sirius Black had tracked you down. You will tell them that Black is innocent. You will allow yourself to be taken to Azkaban. You will not attempt to get away. You will escape 1 year later. You will look for the Dark Lord." He repeated everything he just said. To ensure, Harry thought that the message sunk in. Wormtail was drooling a little, Harry noticed dispassionately. "I'm going to leave," Harry said, "before the Ministry gets here. You're sure that they'll believe the priori incantatem?" "I will show them in the pensieve," Dumbledore assured him. "They will believe it." Harry held out his wand. Dumbledore took it and muttered, "Priori incantatem," and the wand vibrated. The wand showed the Imperius curse and Sectum Sempra. "Perfect," Harry said. He looked at Ron. "Let's go check on Ginny." Snape cast a disillusionment charm upon himself before he too left. Or Harry assumed he left. Snape did not betray himself with a heavy footstep or a cough. He wondered what Snape was thinking. He had, in fact, said very little about the plans that had been made. Harry wondered if he resented the fact that they had to let Pettigrew go, could not end his existence. Harry resented it. Unfortunately, both Dumbledores had thought it necessary. If Pettigrew had not gone to Albania to retrieve Voldemort and had not ensured that he would be resurrected when he did, they would have no idea how or when it would happen. He had to keep telling himself that. Harry, we're on our way to the hospital wing, Professor, Harry said tonelessly, not even turning around. Ron's sister was hurt. Oh, I've heard all about the ruckus in Gryffindor Tower, Lockhart said casually, as if he did not care at all that they could have died. An illegal animagus. You should have brought the rat to me. I can always tell when an animal is not as it seems. It's all in my biography, Magical Me. How could we have known that Scabbers was that man? Ron asked loudly. Ah, you are very young, Lockhart said. A very powerful wizard, such as me, just ask anyone at Witch Weekly, can sense these things. Next time we'll be sure to have you inspect all of our pets, Harry said tonelessly. If you'll excuse us. He dragged Ron away. The tips of his ears were a bright red, and he feared that if Lockhart bragged any more about his magical prowess, Ron just might hex him. As soon as they were out of earshot, Ron started to sputter. I hate that man, Ron said viciously. Harry made a non-committal reply, thinking of Ginny. He hurried up and for once made his tall friend hurry up to catch him. She could have died, he thought, and ice flooded his belly. Pettigrew could have used Avada Kedavra just as easily as he had used whatever spell that hurt her enough to require days in the hospital wing. But she's not dead. She's not dead, he told himself over and over again. Harry realized that he had paused and leaned against the wall. His legs felt weak. I'm fine, he said. Sorry. He was surprised to find that they were right outside the doors of their destination. I just needed a moment. Ron seemed to understand. He held the door open, and Harry walked through. His insides gave a queer jolt when he looked over at her and saw her beaming at him. She looked tired and pale, but she was awake. Fred and George sat near her head, talking in loud voices, teasing their sister. Percy spoke with Madame Pomfrey in a quiet voice. He looked up when Harry entered and smiled, but his brows were furrowed as though he were confused. Harry, Ron. George got up, and Fred was right beside him. What's going on? What did Dumbledore say? Who was that man that attacked you and Ginny? It was Peter Pettigrew, Harry said. He's an animagus, and a Death Eater. Dumbledore questioned him, Ron said. And he's the one who betrayed Harry's parents to you-know-who. Didn't he get an Order of Merlin for going after that Sirius Black? The one who blew up those muggles? Percy asked. Harry drew himself up. Sirius Black is innocent. Pettigrew was the one who blew up the muggles, he said. When Dumbledore questioned him, he admitted it. And, Ron said importantly, Sirius Black is Harry's godfather. Everyone in the room gasped, including Ginny. She winked at him when her brothers weren't looking. You're very calm about this, Harry, Fred said suddenly. Having a rat turn into a man and attack you, and then turn out to be the same man who betrayed your parents. Yeah, George said. I'd be laying in a hospital bed somewhere, if it were me. Harry said. Maybe it hasn't hit me yet. Watch out when it does, Fred said wisely. We'll catch you, George said. Yeah, don't worry, Fred grinned. When you fall face first when it finally hits you, we'll make sure to keep you from breaking too many bones. Thanks, Harry said dryly. Harry walked down to dinner with Ron and Ginny on the day that the other students were set to return from the holidays. He had been feeling quite elated in the past few days. Ginny's return from her stay in the hospital wing had brought with it an overwhelming sense of relief, and he could now simply enjoy the fact that Pettigrew was now in the custody of the Ministry. Sirius was probably almost out of Azkaban. You're looking happy, Ron grinned at him. So are you, Ginny said pointedly. And I suspect that Hermione's return has as much, if not more, to do with it than Pettigrew. Harry shushed them. Not here, he hissed. Stairs are empty, mate, Ron said reasonably. I can't wait to meet my godfather, Harry said loudly. Ron muttered something that might have been paranoid, but Harry chose to ignore it. I can't believe they would just chuck him in without a trial. You talking about young Sirius Black again, Harry? Hagrid met them at the bottom of the stairs. Harry smirked when Ron looked sheepish. Yeah, Harry said. Can't say that didn't shock the hell out of me. Hagrid shook his head. Not that. Well, now I think on it, Sirius never seemed the type to kill all the muggles. But Pettigrew. Harry had heard this before. As soon as Ginny had been released, they had marched down to Hagrid's hut and told him what had happened, excluding the part where they had planned it all along. Hagrid had been shocked and had gasped in all the right places. When Harry had told him about the Fidelius charm and how Wormtail's betrayal had led to his mum's and dad's deaths, he had burst into tears. I always reckoned that he was a bit slow, Hagrid said, shaking his massive head. He seemed pretty dim to me, too, Ron said darkly. Hagrid clapped him on the shoulder. Ron fell to his knees. Well, you lot showed him, didn't you? Got to go. Got to talk to Dumbledore afore all the kids get back. Are they almost here? Ron said brightly. Reckon so, Hagrid said over his shoulder. Saw him coming. Ron, Harry, Ginny. Hermione's voice was filled with excitement. Her face was red from the cold, and she appeared to be at the head of a vast crowd of students of all ages. Neville and Luna were right behind her. What happened? There's been all these mad rumors. People kept talking about it on the train. I don't get the Daily Prophet, so I didn't know anything about it until Neville showed me. Are you all right? Were you really attacked? Breathe, Hermione, Ron said, looking amused. The Prophet actually managed to get it right this time. Scabbers was a mad Death Eater. Harry suspected that Ron really enjoyed saying that. He repeated it to anyone who crossed his path who asked about it, and some who did not ask about it, such as the two Slytherins who had stayed behind for Christmas, were told as well. Harry grinned. He attacked us, but we fought back. You actually fought him? Neville whispered. He appeared to be deeply impressed. Remember how I said we should work on spells together? Harry lowered his voice. I ordered some books from Flourish and Blots, and we've already started a bit of practicing. It paid off, because I used one of them on Pettigrew. Incarcerus. Good work, Arthur, Luna said. Hermione glared at her. Did you really, Harry? She asked. That's a very advanced spell. Harry shrugged. I reckon all we need is practice, Hermione. We were bored a little in the first part of the holidays, and we decided to look through some of Percy's books. It's just lucky that it was one of the ones we tried. He practiced it on me, Ron informed her. You really are serious about this, aren't you? Hermione asked uncertainly. Yes, Ginny said firmly. Especially now. Yeah, Ron echoed. Harry nodded his head. Definitely. Pettigrew just proved that nowhere is really safe, even if we aren't dealing with Voldemort. Yeah, Ron said. Maybe Hedwig will turn out to be a mad Death Eater, too. Don't say that in front of Professor Lockhart. Ginny rolled her eyes. He told Harry and Ron that they should have come to him and shown him the rat. She explained when Hermione and Neville looked confused, as if he would have been able to tell. Hermione's cheeks flushed. I'm sure he meant well. He is the defense professor, and he's a fraud, Ron said. He grinned slyly at her. Don't tell me you've got a crush on him. Hermione fidgeted, and Neville took mercy on her. Well, I was thinking it over at home, and I think practicing spells is important. Good, Harry said. But Harry, Hermione looked over her shoulder to make sure that no one was listening. No one could hear them anyway. Harry had cast Muffliato when they first started talking about it, and had covered it with a cough. I really don't think we should let on that we're doing this. I don't think the teachers would really mind, but since everyone thinks I'm the heir of Slytherin, it should be a secret, Harry finished for her. So we'll have to find a secret place to practice, Luna said. Ron, Ginny, and Harry grinned at each other. We were wandering around Hogwarts, and we found this room.